Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Rhoades with reformdesigns.biz, and today I am here with Nathan Funk of nathanlandisfunk.com. He is an excellent author, speaker, entrepreneur, actor, musician, genius guy who clearly doesn't believe what I'm saying here, but I've
I
known
do
Nathan.
about three of those things.
I've known Nathan for a long time, and he's a really great guy who does a lot of really cool stuff. And so today we're going to be talking about branding because he's wanting to take his music, acting, writing career kind of to the next level. And so he's got some things that we're going to talk about. So if you're just joining us, obviously we're in this fun little digital set here. And this is something that we're just kind of testing out. So if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or ideas for ways that we can improve this set. This is kind of part of the whole branding process where it always starts out as kind of a sketch. It always starts out as just kind of an idea. So I had this idea with my team yesterday to, start doing more of this stuff in kind of a digital set environment because we have the tech capabilities of doing so. And so this was just a very early version of that, kind of wanting to do more interviews with some of my friends and people in the creative world, and so wanting to create a container for that so that this is kind of our version one of this digital set. So if you have any comments or ideas of goofy things we can hang on the walls or whatever, just let us know. Anyway, so Nathan, why don't you talk a little bit about who you are, what you're up to, and then we'll get right into it.
Great. Well, it's great to be here again. Great and great to be here again. I am based in Philadelphia, grew up in Canada, but I am based in Philly. I'm right now doing more music stuff in terms of my freelance career, and now I'm working a day job for these couple months. But I am getting too close to the home stretch of recording my first music EP of singer-songwriter music. And so that's going to be coming out this summer. But I'm also an actor. I worked at the PA Renaissance Fair the last 2 seasons as the assistant music director last year, and in a couple of shows here and there. And so still, working my way up. But it's a good time, and I dabble in a lot of other stuff. I wrote a musical, which was done in the Fringe Festival here in 2015. And so, yeah, I like music, acting, and writing, and I don't seem to be able to let go of any of those three things, no matter what I do. So I just kind of try to see if I can build a career around things I like to do. So talking about branding today, I guess the first thing that I think is worth bringing up is, Ryan, you and I will work in slightly different industries. They're both in the creative industry, but you're dealing more with web design, graphic design, film interface, whereas I'm dealing more so with live people. And so I'm
And we're
curious to
live right
know,
now, so thanks for watching. We appreciate you.
speaking of which, so I'm curious to know, I maybe just compare and contrast what branding means between our two industries.
Sure.
And so this is like a pretty general question, but what role do you think branding plays in terms of what you need to do with you being able to have a sustainable business?
Okay. I think that for anyone who is trying to build anything and bring anything new into the world, whether that is a business, an art project, a music project, maybe you're writing a book, maybe you're like you're saying, recording an EP. When it comes to things like branding, I don't think of branding as just my logo or like the color scheme of stuff that I'm doing, or something you slap on merchandise like a mug or whatever. I think of branding more in the sense of like, how is your personality being communicated to the outside world, and what is the overall style, both visually and musically, that you're wanting to bring into the world, especially in your context as a musician.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to branding, this shirt that I'm wearing, like this is one of our original designs. We do a lot of fun stuff with abstract art because we're always, as creative people, like how it is, like you're always dabbling in new creative forms because you want to get better at your craft, and you want to figure out new ways to express yourself and have fun with it, and really kind of lean into the creative process in that way. And with branding, I think that that's kind of like step number one if you're wanting to actually start thinking seriously about running your own business, or like you were saying, making money doing what you love. Because ultimately what that boils down to is you have to look at your art form in a business sense if you're ever going to actually make that happen. And that means things like registering with your Secretary of State, paying taxes, and figuring out the loopholes of not loopholes, but like all of the hoops that you have to jump through. That's the word I'm looking for. And trying to figure out how to do things in a way that is authentically you and is also going to make you money. And so when it comes to branding, a lot of it, especially for creative types and entrepreneurs and whatever, you have to really start doing a lot of the personal and professional development stuff that goes into asking yourself, what are things that I like? What are things that I like to do? How do I want to show myself to the world? And also being willing to look, to kind of embrace that feeling of like, well, what if they don't like it? And dealing with that aspect of, well, I'm gonna do this anyway. I'm gonna put this out in the world. And when it comes to your branding, it's something that you're gonna see on a lot of stuff. So if you're not happy with your logo, or if you're not happy with the way that your name appears on your business card or your website, or the way it looks on your album art or your blog, whatever that is, all of that stuff is branding as far as I understand it. It's a way of delineating your personality and kind of standing out from the crowd of people who are all using a lot of the same do-it-yourself tools and whatever, because there's plenty of things out there now where you can do it yourself. You can build a website for super cheap or free. You can get logos for $5. But the thing is, then you have to come into the fact of realizing that there's plenty of other people who are doing the exact same thing that you're doing, and your logo ends up looking just like everybody else who paid $5 for it or something. And so a lot of it is really doing the deep work of investing in figuring out your style, what makes you excited, what you're happy to look at every day. Because if you're going to be working on your brand or your business, it is something you have to look at every day. It is something that you're going to be developing. Like even me doing this digital set here, it's kind of like a set piece in that way, that to kind of emphasize what I'm saying here. Like I fully acknowledge, like this is all in development. Like this is literally just a pencil sketch that I kind of threw together. But I'm like, oh man, this gives me a lot of ideas for how I want to develop it down the line. And so whenever you talk about your branding, I still have that little orange chevron as my main foundational piece. Like I can turn it on right here. Like, this little icon here. Hi Mary, thanks for tuning in. How are you? Mary is also a musician. Mary, why don't you tell Nathan a little bit about how you're traveling the world and doing your music and making money? Mary has an awesome story.
Oh, yeah.
And Mary,
how do you have time to watch us?
How do you have time to watch us? That's a great question. Mary, definitely drop your website in the comments so that people who are watching can connect with you. So Mary and I, we've actually talked about doing some live events where she plays some music. And Nathan, we can do this too, where like I could share my screen on my iPad and like do some artwork while you do some music and vice versa and stuff. So there's all kinds of cool stuff you can do.
Fancy.
Anyway, but when it comes to the logo thing, for me, so much of this is about finding that initial, like this here, like finding that initial foundational visual piece that you can then put on everything. I mean, Nike has the swoosh, Apple has the Apple, all of that stuff. And even if it's just text, even if it's just the way that your name appears a certain way on your website, like all of that is branding. So think of branding more as just general overall style that develops over time, that has like an initial foundational piece, whether that's colors,
Yeah.
style, etc. So
Yeah. That's actually interesting, pointing out your logo, because it reminded me of something that I've been using as my logo for a while, and I only this year realized that it didn't really mean anything and didn't make any sense. So I just sort of got rid of it.
right.
It was something that I sort of dreamed up like while listening to music one day, and was kind of like, that's a cool thing. So I put it on my blog for like 8 years, and like it still has meaning to me, I guess, but it doesn't really connect. Like when I looked at my blog, it was like live it real, and then it had this like red box with like these squiggly things sticking into the box, and it was like, this looks like a surfing logo. Like
Right.
it wasn't, didn't really represent anything. And that was, if I really think about the words like live it real, which like that to me is like one of the deepest parts about me, is like I want to be authentic. Like I would like to talk about things that I'm really thinking about. And that's one thing I think that bothers me a lot in different organizations that I'm in, is when people don't really say what they're thinking. And I struggle with that too a lot, but I'm doing my best to try to actually express what I'm thinking. It might not be right, but like at least talk about it.
Right.
And so then when I thought about that, I was like, okay, so this random logo is not really representative of anything I'm thinking. So for now, I just sort of have a placeholder right now. It's on my blog. It's just like trees, because to me, trees are pretty real.
Right. So Phil Drysdale has joined. Thank you for tuning in, Phil. I hope you're doing well.
Oh, hi, Phil.
So this is insightful. I appreciate you talking about that, because especially in my design agency, it's like we have people that come to us all the time that are like, they have an idea, or maybe they started a business, or they started some project or something, and like you said, they like just threw something together because, oh, this is kind of cool. But then it's like they get several years into it, and then they have this moment where they're like, I need to step up my marketing, or I need to step up my game in this regard. Like, how do I stand out from everybody else in my industry, blah, blah, blah. And they realize like, oh, I don't actually like my logo. Like, it doesn't mean anything. And so
Yeah,
that's something that I encounter a lot in what I do. And so it's, I find it fascinating that you brought it up. So I guess my question to you is, what was it that had you have that moment? Like, how did you come to that conclusion where you're like, actually, this doesn't mean anything? Like, what made you go from, I'm okay with this, it's good enough, to, no, actually, it's not good enough? Because that moment is actually really important to me as a designer, trying to, find out how to connect with other people.
Well, I think the way that I would frame it is in the form of a quote that was given to me while I was writing my musical. And the quote is, there's a difference between a good idea and a cool idea. And you can have many cool ideas, but it's the good ideas that you want to stick with. And I think that my logo, though it was cool, it just didn't really fit. Like, it wasn't a good idea. It wasn't like, it didn't really fit with what I was trying to do. And even though it took like a while for me to eventually come to terms with that, like I find like often when we have like truth that like hits us, it like takes many times of us hearing that truth before we actually act on it. And I don't have a problem with that. Like, because I think sometimes we hear things in our mind that aren't true. And if we only hear it once or twice, then we just sort of like, whatever. But it's like, if you have the same thought that occurs like, every hour of every day for like 10 years, maybe it's time that you address that thought, So anyway, it was one of those moments where once I got a little more understanding as to how media works and how branding works, not that I still claim to be an expert, but I've at least done enough study on communication. And I think even theater was a great education on
This is all theater. I mean, look, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm in a cartoon right now. Like, this is ridiculous.
But
we're having fun, right?
Yeah, Shakespeare would be proud, I'm sure. So yeah, when I think about all this, it really, I think it comes down to that authenticity, but also being able to present it in a way that's interesting. Because that's the thing, like, I could sit down and eat breakfast and have like someone videotape me eating Cheerios. And that's not interesting. It's like truthful, but it's not interesting.
Right.
So it's like, how can we present both of those things at the same time? Something that's both true and interesting. And that's like, I think one of my life's goals is to capture both of those things in like the same content.
Absolutely. That's great, man. So how are you working to infuse that into your branding? How are you working to infuse that into your artwork? Like, how have you seen that realization transform the way that you create?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna start that by like backing up a little bit. So we talked about how like branding affects graphic design and web design and things. To understand sort of where I'm coming from, so the acting and the music world, I'm still sort of just at the cusp of the music world right now, but I've been, at enough auditions to know sort of some of the ins and outs of the theater world. And branding is not a word you hear very often, actually.
Right.
Um,
Well, I mean, it conjures up images of
right,
marketers and people like that. It's like I'm sure that even just
right.
us promoting this event, like there's people watching, but a lot of people who would probably get a lot out of it might not tune in because like, oh well, I'm not starting a business. Why would I need to know about branding? And so,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if I haven't checked lately and who's all tuned in, but I'm curious to know if
I've got at least, it says there's at least 7 people watching, but it doesn't actually directly tell me who. So if you're here, feel free to drop a comment and say hello, ask questions, because that makes all this all the more fun. It's kind of, my friend Brent said this is almost like Space Ghost Coast to Coast. So. But in terms of what
for
you're
an
saying
actor,
about,
I mean, branding definitely, yeah. So branding comes into play, but it's just called something slightly different. I mean, number one, your headshot is like probably your most important logo, so to speak, because when you go into an audition room, all you have is your headshot and your resume mostly, and they're going to look at your headshot first, usually. And so I just got my headshots redone this year because I realized that that it's important, even though it's kind of expensive.
Right.
So you have a good looking headshot, and so having that capture who you are is important. That's why it's tough because it's also difficult to get one headshot that encapsulates who you are, in the sense of, if you're going in for comedy, you might want one of you smiling, but if you're going in for a drama, you might want one of you not smiling, so it's sometimes good to have, yes, exactly.
Here, let's both do the, get the,
yeah, like that. I feel like I'm playing dynamite.
there we go.
And so, being able to actually bring different headshots to the table, and by that I mean like pick a headshot before you go in. Do not bring multiple headshots, but to cater your headshot and your resume for each job is important, and you're able to do that as an actor. Like, you can't change your logo, for a graphic design company, every time you get a new client. But with acting, it's a little bit different. But with a resume, you pretty much edit that every time you go into an important audition, because people don't always care that you have a Pennsylvania driver's license. Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to just being able to present yourself both on paper and then in person there. And so I think that's where branding comes in important. I mean, another obvious way this comes into play is on your website, because actors do usually have websites. Now, I can't say, though, that I have ever directly gotten booked from someone through my website yet. I mean, the acting world is so saturated that like casting directors usually are not going, like, Googling Philadelphia actor,
Right. Well, so then on that note, though, do you feel that by having a website, though, that having your own domain name, having basically your own digital real estate online, like, do you feel that has helped you own your acting career more? Do you feel that has helped you really step into your own creative space and hold that and be like, okay, yeah, I've got business cards, I've got a website, like, this isn't something that you're just playing at. This isn't a hobby. Like, you're like, I'm in,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, while a website and business cards are not always they're not always like the portal into getting a job, it's definitely a great secondary support. Like, I have had people who heard about me through word of mouth. And I would say most of my jobs from the past since college have come through word of mouth, um, and a couple, and from me basically like scrolling through acting websites and like applying for jobs.
Sure.
But I will say that, I find out then that people, they go and Google me after I audition or before I audition. Right. And I know from being on the other side of the table, because I've now helped casting in a couple different shows, we Google the people that we put through the audition process. And I remember with this one guy, we were like trying desperately to find any video of him singing, even on Facebook. He didn't have a website. And we were like, this guy needs to have some sort of web presence, because we don't know who he is. Like, right. He must have auditioned and done okay, but we couldn't remember exactly like what happened. And honestly, probably one of the reasons we didn't cast him was because he did not have something that was easily accessible for casting directors.
Right.
And I think having a website has been a huge help for me. Is that Hulk Hogan?
Yeah, Brent just shared a picture of Space Ghost Coast to Coast. So that's funny.
Wait, I'm only seeing like half the screen. I feel like I'm missing.
Okay, well you can click on the link. It's in the comments there.
I'll work on it.
Well, that's interesting though, that you noticed that this person not having that space, that container for his his creative journey or whatever, that actually ended up costing him the gig at some level. And
yeah,
I think that's an important aspect to consider when you're thinking about doing branding or doing your own thing. It's like, at least having something that shows that you're building, and shows, like you said, we've said off the air different times that people they really like being part of a bigger community, or at least a community that they perceive is like advancing and doing stuff. And so, how have you seen, like I said, how do you think that this has really affected the way that you look at branding in your head, like as an artist, as a musician? Because like you said, it's not something that people think about a lot.
Yeah. So I guess all that to say, for me, the way that I've been dealing with it is, number one, it was just like, I needed to get a website up. Like, it was like 2 years ago. And I was like, I think in order to help taking myself seriously, I should build a website, even if I'm not like directly getting, booked from people requiring I have a website. Because mentally it helps you take yourself seriously,
Right.
Same with like getting business cards. Yeah. And that's the thing with like both of our industries, I think. It's like anyone can be a like graphic designer, and everyone is a singer, but like, there's the time when like the rubber hits the road, and it really separates the people who are serious from those who are not, because they actually put the time into it. And so for me, I guess I've been just learning it more, or the things that make me unique, and it's been sort of a process of doing a good bit of listening and observing what other people have seen in me that's interesting, because I think that even going into my final year at Temple, I didn't really have a sense of the things that helped make me unique as a person, and by virtue of that, a performer. And now, after observing the things that I have been called in for, I realize that almost all of them require me to be both a performer and a musician. And I guess that never occurred to me, the fact that I played 2 instruments, now I play 5 instruments, because I've now tried to capitalize on that.
There you go. See?
So, the fact that I play a bunch of instruments and sing, but also have training as an actor, is something that is marketable.
Right.
And so I think recognizing that was a big plus. And so I don't just like audition for anything anymore. In fact, right now, maybe I'm just being lazy, but I've been to like 1 audition this year so far. But it's more because I'm also honing on this EP, because I'm really hoping that, I want to continue to act, but I also love creating my own stuff. And acting, in a sense, usually, since you are being looked at for pre-written roles, I find you don't get as much creative control. And so that's why I like the process of creating my own stuff, because then I get to write my own parts and control the story a little more. So essentially it's just been a matter of finding that journey of Okay, so I'm an actor and a musician. Another couple things that like people have been casting me for is like robotic kind of creatures. Like I was C-3PO in Star Wars Shakespeare, which now I'm like, of course I was. And usually like the nerdy like dork or the like jerk boyfriend. I've gotten both of those reasonable
Interesting.
now.
I can't picture you as a jerk boyfriend. He's
Oh
a keeper,
man, there's
ladies.
some like footage somewhere. I don't even know where it was, but yeah, I've gotten a few gigs like that. Um, also, I think a couple other things that have affected me is well, the fact that I play guitar upside down, which is something that has been noticed in almost every music gig that I have done.
You know,
Like
Daniel
I was
Silva
doing.
does that too.
Oh no way!
Yeah,
Oh, that's
he's
funny.
left-handed, so he plays a. Are you left-handed?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, do you play a traditional guitar just upside down then?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're the second person that I know who does that.
Oh, that's so funny.
So
Well, Jimi Hendrix also did that.
okay,
So he,
you
I
guys are in
think,
good company, and you're all amazing guitarists. So
well, thanks. I realized that that's actually something that at first I was like, oh man, maybe I should just get a left-handed guitar because I can also play a left-handed guitar. It's just that my next guitar is not a left-handed guitar. It was given to me by a friend, and I've always wanted to use that because it's special to me. But now recognizing like, actually, I think that's kind of cool to be honest about the fact that like I didn't learn guitar correctly and it's fine, it's the only problem is sometimes I accidentally bump the volume switch because it's on the bottom of the guitar.
right,
And so I do need to watch that. But now recognizing that maybe that's actually like a trait, like something that makes me unique. Being Canadian is also like a thing that I've noticed that like around
right.
here people notice. It's like the second thing people learn about me, other than the fact that like my last name is Landis Funk, which is also memorable, I
So wait,
guess.
so is that your last name? So that I thought that was like your first, your middle, and your last name.
No, no,
Really?
I literally my last name is Landis Funk.
I did not know that. Oh,
Surprise! Yeah, it's not
wow.
just me being like facetious and putting like Landis in my name. My middle name is actually David. So yeah, my full just first and last
Wow.
name is Nathan.
Okay.
So there you go. That's why like whenever people put their middle name in their like actor name, I like get mad at them because I'm like, you're the reason people don't think Landis is part of my last name.
It's true. I didn't think it was either.
It's fine. It's not your fault. No, I understand why people put their middle names in their stage names, because sometimes if your name is Jane Smith, there's a lot of you out there, so you need some help.
Yeah.
But
That's
I've
branding,
had to
folks.
explain that to many people. So yeah, so thank you, Mom and Dad, for giving me a name that is memorable, also
It
because
is.
I'm like known as Funk by most of my friends. Um, so yeah, there's some things that I guess you just sort of like get teased out of you as you sort of like just audition more and do more shows. Definitely, I think like also the whole Mennonite thing, because I grew up Mennonite and like just still, I'm sort of semi in that faith community in some ways. It's another thing that I try to stay connected to people in that realm. You know, Living in Philly, it takes a different sort of spin on things, but I am right now like a part of a congregation here has got some Mennonite ties, and so it's an interesting thing, and I don't I definitely would never say like make your religion like part of your marketing package, like, but it's still like I think important to own who you are and what you think, and even if like sometimes that can potentially make people be a little skittish about it, I think in the end you'll have more true fans when you're actually honest about what you think.
Right. Awesome. So, in regards to the true fans thing, I'm curious how you've seen that play out in your own life. For those of you who don't know, Kevin Kelly, the founder of Wired Magazine, he wrote an excellent article called "A Thousand True Fans," and there's also videos that you can look up. If you just search on YouTube or something, 1,000 True Fans. Basically, the concept is so many people who are trying to stand out from the crowd. They're trying to brand themselves. They're trying to like make something happen whether it's make money online or like figure out how to sell their own products or services, or whatever that is. It doesn't really matter. But the concept of the 1,000 True Fans is basically where, instead of looking at like, oh, how can I go viral, how can I reach the biggest audience possible, you actually shift that and flip it on its head and intentionally try to connect with the smallest audience possible. You connect with the people who are already listening, and you just keep connecting with those people, because chances are the people who are going to sit and, for example, something like this, like if you're watching this on Facebook right now, we've been on for half an hour. A bunch of you have been watching, I think, for the entire time. So first of all, thank you. We would consider you true fans in that regard, because you're engaging with us and you're following us while we're still developing our ideas. And those are the people who are going to be with you for the long haul, especially if you're, starting a music project, an art project, even a business. Whenever we first started our design agency back in 2011, nobody knew who we were. We didn't know what we were doing. And we just had a handful of friends and family who knew knew that we could do design work and knew that we could do websites and whatever. And those were our initial early fans. And now, years and years later, just continuing to develop and continuing to build, like, we have clients all over the world. But whenever you're getting started, and especially before you've really kind of hit your stride, you're always having to think about, how can I reach that group of people who are going to be my fans, regardless of whether I'm, selling 1,000 records every time I show up anywhere, or people who are just going to listen to it because they like the music. Like, those people who are not your fair weather friends, so to speak. How have you seen that play out in your own career, Nathan? I'm curious.
Well, I don't think I've thought as actively about the 1,000 True Fans thing until more recently, after understanding that concept. Because I more just have like friend groups, and I ask them to help me. And
Right.
then, I guess there have been, out of that, other people who have paid attention to those things that we've done and hopped on board. But I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a few people I could point to in my life and be like, I think they're fans, and maybe that's something that'll grow as it continues. But yeah, I still feel like right now, until like my EP is done, for example, like I'm not as actively trying to point people towards, like, how do I say this? Here's my business and like hire me for something.
Sure.
Because I'm not, that's not entirely how, I don't know, things have worked thus far with me.
Sure.
But with, once my EP is done, I think then maybe it'll be a little bit more straightforward, because I kind of feel weird now being like, I'm a musician, but really not having the music online that I would like to show people, to be like, this is what I actually have made.
Well,
I have fanship, but it's, that's another thing that I would like to rewrite a little bit more before I sort of like publicly be like, who wants to do my musical?
Sure. So have you thought about, kind of bringing the people who are paying attention? Have you thought about like bringing them on that journey with you a little bit with the stuff that you share?
Yeah, I've started to do that. And that with the creation of my Instagram account about a month ago, it was after I realized that there were multiple people in the space of like a couple of weeks who like were asking me for my Instagram, and like it was weird. It was like, wait, you're not asking for Facebook anymore? Is everyone's on Instagram now? And I suddenly realized like I was maybe the only one of my artsy friends who was like not on Instagram. And plus, I think sometimes Facebook can get aggressive. And so I eventually was like, you know what? Why not? I'm just going to get Instagram. And so from Instagram, I have been trying to record my journey in a little more chronological fashion. Also with like my Facebook page, which I created, I think this year, to chronicle my journey into recording. It's something I have to get used to though, because I'm used to just sort of like hunkering down and like staring down a problem until it's fixed, and like, who cares what everyone else is doing? Like, I'm doing my thing.
Right.
So it's something I got to get used to doing more of. And So actually, that actually piggybacks on a question that I wanted to ask you, because you are putting content out pretty regularly,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just curious to know, like, what sort of uh, results, maybe not be the right word, but what sort of connections you've gained from that, what
Sure.
has worked, what hasn't worked regarding putting info out there consistently.
Yeah. So actually, on that note, Brent just shared a picture or a link here in the comments for a great book for anyone who's watching called "Show Your Work" by Austin Kleon. So I'm going
Oh,
to
awesome.
fade myself out here. Watch this. This will be fun. I'm gonna make myself disappear, and then I'm
Oh,
going
I'm
to.
alone.
You're not alone here. You got a floating book. I'm still, like I said, guys, I'm still working on figuring out the easiest way to do this kind of stuff. So thanks for joining with us as we're working out some technical kinks. But this is an excellent book by Austin Kleon. And the tagline is 10 Ways to Share Your Creativity and Get Noticed. Wait, is it noticed? It's
Oh, I'm noticing.
get discovered. Okay, that's the word. So if you pick up Show Your Work, he talks a lot about that, and that's kind of where I've gotten a lot of my philosophy from, or on how to do creative stuff and bring creative things into the
Mm,
world. A lot of it is people like to see process and they like to be part of the
mm,
narrative of your ideas coming to life. And so in that way, for me, a lot of times, like whenever I'm designing new shirts or products, or we actually just recently, I just here from my bag of tricks, ta-da!
oh, that's awesome.
So this is a backpack that I designed based on an abstract art piece that I did years ago. And so the interesting thing about so much of this creative journey and this branding stuff is it's like, you can do the work one time and then have something that you can refer back to or repurpose later. Like initially, this was just a sketch, like a digital sketch, basically. And then I blew it up as a poster and put it in our online store and, things like that. And then it's like people start seeing that and they start seeing the development of it, and especially whenever you're able to like point back to the origin. I mean, look at all the superhero movies, all the origin stories and whatever. I mean, people love knowing where you've come from. And so especially if you're trying to build a business, build a brand or whatever, it's like there's people who have been watching us do this with our business since 2011. And some of those
Mm,
people, it's crazy. Like I'll still get messages from people that are like, I've been watching you share all this stuff and do all this stuff over the years, and it's really inspired me to like, I'm going to start my own business. Like I got a buddy of mine who actually just started a coffee shop slash bookstore type thing. And so they bought a space and they needed a logo because they're like, we're going to do this right. We want to do this in a way where, we can get people involved whenever. And so same kind of concept though, they acknowledged on their social media pages like, hey, we're just getting started here. Like this is us painting the building and whatever. Cause the people who were rooting for them are like friends and family and people who already kind of know you and are for you. And so what ends up happening is then those people end up sharing your stuff and then their friends see it. And so it's more of like a multiplication effect
yeah.
as opposed to you trying to like just, shotgun blast this random audience. Um, and so then people see that process and they see you developing it, and that's again why I'm doing even this little digital set here thing. It's like even doing this, I've got ideas for the next one, and so I'll be able to implement those ideas, and then people will be able to see that process. And so it's always fun being able to see that and root for people. And so
Mm,
he talks a lot about that in the Show Your Work book, and it's kind of been what has
mm,
really informed the way that I have chosen to go about so much of this, because it shows authenticity, and the people that'll connect with you whenever you're being authentic like that, those are the people that you want around you. Those are the people that you'll
mm.
end up collaborating with. Those are the people that will end up buying your album just because they like you and they love you and they want to support you. So
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Okay. So I think that pretty well covers like our first question about just like initial, like, all right, what does it take to do branding for graphic design, web design versus like acting and musicking?
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
the bottom line of it is really it's all about finding your own personal style. It's about finding and
mhm,
and
mhm,
choosing something that you're gonna enjoy carrying forward. Because
mhm,
there's
mhm.
always those spots where you don't feel like you can move forward. There's always those times where you're like, what am I even doing?
Mhm.
So
So building on that, the next question I think we were going to bring up has to do with when you get a client who wants a logo or a website or all of the above.
sure.
Walk us through how you tease out those ideas from them to create their own brand, or how
Sure.
someone who's watching in might be able to do that for themselves.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of what we do, just a little bit about our process, is we have on our website, we have like this initial contact form that over the years we've just figured out. Here's a number of questions that help us understand the scope of a project before a customer technically even comes in through the digital door, so to speak. It gives me a broad overview of what they're wanting to build, what they're wanting to do, and so if you're in that space of like trying to start a business, an art project, a music project, whatever, a lot of it first starts with you getting clear on what you want. And so those are a lot of the kinds of questions that I help tease out whenever I'm working with clients. It's kind of like, okay, if this logo was a song, what song would it be? If this logo was a movie, what movie would it be? Helping them think more abstract
Mm-hmm.
about the style that they like, because and another thing I'll do too is I'll have them send me either photographs or other logos that they like, and I try to get them to tell me why they like it. And so a lot of times it's things like, oh, I like the way that the T has this particular angle, or just those kind of abstract things that help me in the creation process of figuring out, oh, you're going for a modern look. So like, for example, a lot of things we hear is like, oh, I want it to pop. Especially in the design world, when someone says they want something to pop, what they really mean is they want a drop shadow on the back or behind it. It's like, that's it gives you, they want like a three-dimensional effect. So like even in this little digital set, like down here, if you look at how I've created like a little bit of a darker shadow behind the desk, it kind of gives the illusion of depth. I mean, this is just a two-dimensional screen. Like I can turn my webcam off just like that. I mean, it's all about layers. And when I'm working with clients and when I'm helping them bring ideas to life, I try to communicate in that way, because the creative process can be messy. It can be, and it always starts with just sketches. It always starts with just a blank canvas or a blank whiteboard or something. And so I encourage them in that and remind them, like, don't get stressed out feeling like I don't even know what to do, because you never do. And it's kind of like you work with what you have where you're at, and then you form it. You start testing it and you put it out there and you show it to people that you trust and people who have your best interest in mind. And so I basically, I'll ask them questions that tease that stuff out, and then if they hire us for like a branding package or something, we have a questionnaire that we call our brand builder app. It's basically an online web application that we send to every one of our branding clients that asks a lot of those deep dive questions, like, tell us about some key historical points in the forming of your business. Tell us about what's your mission, what do you have, what's your vision, your long-term vision for this organization or this project, because knowing that helps me in the design aspect of things. It helps me create something that I feel reflects that. And so we'll end up creating concepts, we send them over, and then they basically say, oh, I like this one, the best of all of them. And then we actually set up a screen sharing session where I'll actually share my screen live, and we finish the logo that way, instead of going back and forth for weeks on email, like, oh, change the font, change the color. Because a lot of it, I find, it's not so much about the client or whatever saying, "Oh, you're the designer, just make something happen." It doesn't. I don't work like that. I'm much more work with the person, because I find that the creative process is much more of a co-creation type thing, as opposed to just, here's a check, do something. Like, I don't work very well
Yeah.
with people like that. So
Yeah. Makes sense. So for someone like me who is coming out with an EP, I'm now considering what I want for album logo design, and even thinking about how I present myself on a poster.
right.
I mean, I already have my website. It's the basic form of it. It's nothing like fancy. There's a video on it, and it just shows like an array of things. But so for someone like me, there's also any number of like dudes with guitars out there, and so like, and even on Spotify, I listen to this Discover Weekly a lot. I don't know if any of y'all do, but I do a lot. But Spotify seems convinced that all I listen to is like pop singer-songwriter, soft vocals that literally all sound the same. They're like different people, but they all sound the same, and they all have like the same cover of the same person with a beard and a tree in the background.
I
And I'm like,
actually don't have a Spotify account, so I don't.
okay,
But
that's fine.
I'm sure it's similar to a lot of the other music streaming things, where they're very algorithm based, and it's like, oh,
Right.
I think you like this kind of music.
It has made me so acutely aware of how many other people out there are doing this music thing, and how easy it would be to be just like everybody else.
Yep.
Even though I think that at the core, the stuff I want to share is fairly unique. If it's not presented in the right way, then I think it'll just come out as like another guy singing some of his songs that he wrote once.
Right.
So, do you have any suggestions for me as to like how I would go about thinking about things like album arts,
Right.
or
Yeah, I would say, first things first is, the name of this webinar, so to speak, is how to stand out from the crowd. And
Yeah.
what it really boils down to is you want to be thinking in terms of, how can I delight my audience? So, for example, I'm gone. I'm back. It's like being able to have fun with your creativity, being able to do something in a way where it's going to make you, like you said, stand out from all the other people who are playing guitar with a beard, and they play the same 4 or 5 pop song chords. What is it, like C major? I don't know what the actual chords are, but it's
G C D C.
What is it?
It's fine. G C D C.
Okay, well, right.
It's actually, yeah.
And so, knowing that, I feel like part of it is really just thinking to yourself, okay, if I was in a music store, I mean, you remember they used to have those. If I walked into a music store and saw a wall of album art, like, what would draw your attention? Like, what would make you stop and look?
Yeah. It's an interesting
Brent again with the
oh yeah, Purple Cow.
Yeah.
I need to read this book.
So let me. I gotta fix this so that you guys can see it. But here, I'll just drag it over here. It's kind of ugly on the screen, but you'll see. I got a point. See, I'm still learning here too, guys. Look, I'll get all cut off. So, Purple Cow by Seth Godin is an
audio CD for $1,000.
Oh, apparently somebody's trying to make some money on a resource that is scarce.
Okay,
and that's economics 101, kids. Capitalism, hey. So yeah, I mean, really what it boils down to is asking yourself, like, what makes you unique? So like you said before, the thing about the upside down guitar, or you're Canadian. I mean, for me, what is stopping the people who are watching this video from continuing to scroll? Like, what is it? Why are people tuned in? And if you're watching, and I'm curious, like, why are you watching? Brent said he's charging a
Maybe they're
thousand, but
wondering that
does
same
anyone?
thing themselves.
What'd you say?
I said maybe they're wondering that same thing
Hey,
themselves.
they might be, but ultimately, it's like, Brent said he's charging 1,000, but is anyone paying that? That's a good question too. Um,
True.
but it's one of those things where when you're making something new, you have to think like, what's going to make you stand out? Because there are people who
Yeah.
don't want to stand out. There are people who want to just toe the line, and it's like, you know what, I
Yeah.
want to do a cover song album, um, and that's it. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
so for you, those are the kind of questions that I would be asking you if you
Yeah.
were working with us on this stuff.
Sure.
It's like,
Now, I guess in conjunction with that, we were talking earlier about authenticity, and that's one of the most major things that I value. And I think about examples of bands who do something that's clearly different, but to me, it's interesting and it's cool. But for me, I don't want to pull out like a gimmick. So, for example, there's a band that I heard of a couple weeks ago called Steam Powered Giraffe. And if you listen to a song by them, it'll just be like, oh, this is a nice song. It's pretty. And then you watch a music video by them and you're like, oh my gosh, they're automatons. Like, it's like this like folk band and they literally look like they popped out of like a steampunk album. And it's like, it's the craziest thing. And they're very popular. And I don't know how I never heard of them before. But
so
for
wait, you
me,
mean like their
like,
stage presence?
as in they're literally faces painted, wearing top hat, dancing like this.
What's
If
it
you
called?
type in honey, a steam powered giraffe, look up the song Honeybee.
Okay, interesting. Oh yeah, okay.
So if you look at them, you think they're a metal band, but you listen to them and you're like, they're a folk band. And that is pretty unique, I think. And I have a lot of admiration for it. But for me, though, I'm kind of jealous of the fact that they can like hide their actual identities, even though they're famous. That's a great plot. Like, I don't see myself like putting a bunch of like get up on to like, I don't know. To me, like it almost maybe feels like it's going against the idea of being authentic. And so I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts on how to be authentic but also stand out from the crowd?
Right. Brent said music is a tad loud. What, are you hearing music? You shouldn't be hearing music. I don't know where that's coming from.
I don't know either.
I
I'm
don't have
sorry.
any I don't have any record of music playing. But let us know, Brent. What were you saying, Nathan? Sorry.
I was just saying, so I guess balancing, maybe it's not a balance, but I feel like in my mind, there's this pull between trying to be authentic, but also trying to be interesting. And maybe to answer my own question, that somewhere the answer lies in finding the most interesting part of your authentic self and presenting that. Um, and or maybe just sort of making an art out of that. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, I mean, okay, so just for example, with me with these shirts, Brent was the one that had a hidden window playing music. It wasn't us. It's
Surprise.
probably user error. Brent's a tech guy, so that's a tech guy joke.
Did you turn it off and on again?
Yeah, there you go. Mary said before, she watches because it's useful info and thoughtful setup, so we know you're serious and care about what you're doing. And so, Nathan, even
Cool.
with you, like how I would see you could apply even that, where it's like just the fact that you're like letting people know, hey guys, I'm doing this EP. I'm doing, uh, even if you had some general concepts of like album art or something, if you put it out to your audience and just said, hey guys, like this is what I'm working on, I'm debating which direction to go here, what do you think? And then you kind of involve them in that narrative. That's something
Mm.
that not a lot of musicians do. A lot of artists, a lot of
Mm.
creators, they're kind of weird about their creative process. I have gleaned immense amounts of good ideas and collaborative concepts and stuff just by throwing something out there. If like I have a question that I'm wrestling with, whether it's like a shirt design or a poster, or even just new products, even a new website or something, it's like I want to
Yeah.
know what the people who are paying attention to, like I want to know what
Yeah.
their what they're resonating with.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of like thinking about, what kind of audience, like in your ideal world, if money was no object, and you had plenty of time to do whatever you wanted, like what would it look like? Like what was your, if you were on stage in front of 1,000 people, like how would you want to be seen? How would you want to be performing? What would you want to be doing? What would you have fun doing? And not only that, but more importantly, like what's going to be fun to do and what's going to be sustainable? Like
Yeah.
sustainable in the sense of like, is this something that you could see yourself doing consistently long term because you feel energized when you're doing it and when you're done? And so for me, even these webinars and stuff, like I get a lot of joy out of doing them because I get to have fun and kind of create the world that they're in. I get to talk with my friends. I get to learn some stuff, and I get to, entertain and educate people who watch. And, that hits a lot of really important things for me. And it also serves to market my business. It helps to get people to see like, oh, this is actually what Ryan does. This is some of the stuff that he works on. And it gives me the opportunity to talk about my forthcoming book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles and myself. And so, things like that where you, like I said, create this container for your creativity.
Yeah.
And so I guess the question you start to ask yourself over and over is, how do you want your audience to engage with you? What do you want them to resonate with? If you could be whoever you want to be, what does that look like? And those are not easy questions, but if you have an answer, I'm all ears.
Yeah, that sounds like something I need to like sit in a hovel for a couple weeks with a journal and answer. But I think that the EP itself, the content of it is pretty personal, and that's one of the reasons I began songwriting, like many songwriters, is to channel my own feelings toward a situation into a artistic work, which helps you get through that and also frame it, and maybe put some closure on it. And so that's something I hope to continue to do with my own EP, and that, with my own personal music. And that's perhaps why I'm using my own name on the EP, as opposed to, up to this point, my music project has been called Live It Real. But we were chatting earlier about this, but I changed it to be my name again, as opposed to Live It Real, just because I felt that was actually more real to use my own name. And plus, it's mostly me doing everything. So, like, who am I kidding? I don't know why Owl City decides they're going to be one guy, or pardon me, like, Owl City is one guy. But he can call himself Owl City. For me, I think I'll just call myself my name because I like my name. But there might be projects down the road where I would be part of a different band and we call ourselves something different. So either way, I think that will involve just some personal journeying, and may very well crowdsource some of the design ideas. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where at least for me, I have a very difficult time doing any creative stuff if I am feeling stressed out. Even if it's stuff, and I don't know about you, like even if it's stuff that technically I know that I'm good at and that it's not actually difficult work, like web design or things that I've been doing for years and years that are just kind of like memory at this point. If I'm feeling really stressed out about something, it makes it almost impossible for me to get into that creative zone. And so a lot of times I will spend time, like you said, just journaling and brain dumping and getting all the noise out, right? And then getting to that space of where you have the ability to just create freely and be like, oh yeah, actually I do know what I'm doing. I do know, what I want to see happen, and be willing to actually try it out. So
one thing, and this is maybe just tagging on to my earlier thought process, but maybe to wrap up this portion of the conversation. I think one thing about what I want to capture with my EP is specifically, I don't want to be writing the songs I write. I didn't write them just because I thought they were catchy. I wanted to capture an authentic experience that I had experienced. There's a song by Ben Rector called Crazy, and I really like this song. It encapsulates exactly what I'm talking about. This song is basically him singing about how, man, last night was crazy. We like put some food in the microwave and then we like ate Cheetos and like watched Netflix. It was so rad. Like, and just to sort of counter all these like party songs that are like, well, last Friday night we went paint on red. And it's like, that's cool. But like, I feel like many less of us are actually doing those things than these songs would let on.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, who actually was doing all those things? And it's like, then we get like major FOMO when we don't experience that because we
Can
think,
you define
well, gosh,
FOMO for those who are not enlightened on that?
does anyone not know what FOMO is? That I'm sorry, I didn't know what FOMO was a couple of years ago. Fear of missing out.
Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty standard. People know that. But
it's kind of meta. Like if you like hear about FOMO and you're like, what's that? And then you kind of have it about itself.
Yeah. Then you feel left out of the fact you don't know what FOMO is. Ooh, that's so meta. Okay. So anyway, I really love that
I'll
idea.
Let myself
of like,
out. Bye.
Yeah, authentically capturing what the human experience is really like, and not just this sort of filtered version that you see on Instagram or the pop songs you hear on the radio. So trying to think about like funneling that concept into a album art.
So are you wanting to do more like humor, more kind of satire?
Not necessarily, not humor necessarily in this EP. The problem with that is that like when I feel strongly, it's like never funny. It's like dramatic and dark, and I write about pain. And so, I wish that I could more easier just snap and make it like a funny thing. But I guess the concepts behind it is just that idea of like being authentic about your experience. Like, for example, the first song on the EP is like, it's called Get By. It's basically about dealing with people who have just had it in for you. And
Mary and Landis says thumbs up.
Thanks, Mom.
See, she's one of your biggest fans, Nathan.
She is. No, honestly, like my mom, I think she actually is my biggest fan. Like my dad, he's like my big fan too. But like anytime I'd play piano at home, like Mom would always clap afterwards. And like, so I think that's probably the reason I'm still doing music today. I had a lot of support growing up. So thanks, Mom. So yeah, I guess channeling that all into an album cover, thinking about like authenticity. I think that's also kind of meta to like be like, I'm gonna be authentic in an album cover because in a sense it's an album cover. So like, I don't know, but I think there's something in there that I can glean to sort of build off of, whether it's like a natural.
Heather says
in the world.
Heather Goldman says, "Yo," she's also a singer-songwriter. She said she loves my desk. Thanks. I actually drew it just this afternoon. So, so yeah, this is like version 0.1 with version 1.0 being the public release. So you guys are like early test subjects for this concept. It'll look a lot different than this in a couple months at least, I'm sure.
I mean, you're looking better than me. I got like St. Francis of Assisi like chilling out over
Dude
here.
Dude is a bro though.
It's a nice looking at a bird. It's cool. Anyway, man, I'm gonna get so distracted.
No, you were talking about being authentic with an album art.
Yeah, I think that's just like the main thing I want to try to capture. Like one of the ideas for the EP title that I've come up with is Journey Journals. Just in a sense that does capture some of my journeys and thoughts over the last couple of years, and like putting them to song. But I'll have to see. Either way, I'm gonna finish the EP recording first, and then maybe think more about big picture. Okay. But okay, so I do want to move on to our. This is actually like the next question, and maybe like the final question in terms of what I had planned.
Yeah, I mean I scheduled it for about an hour, so we're about an hour 4 minutes in. So whatever.
Okay, well, what I wanted to talk about was actually switching gears a little bit into more of like a more human side of this, in the sense of we are starting to realize that the effects of being on computers, being on social media all the time might not always be the most positive. Like I wrote a blog on my blog, liveitreal.wordpress.com.
Which you can also check out if you go to nathanlandisfunk.com. There's a link on there to his blog too.
Under my writing tab, you can go read it, and you can see a picture of the Lego thing I built when I was in middle school. And now I look at it and I'm like, that is cooler than anything I've made in the past 10 years. Why?
Yeah.
It's okay. So what I did, I have to explain this because I'm like super proud of it. So I had this idea where I was going to make a real life video game out of Lego. So I built this like world out of Lego, and then I would have a friend come over and they would play the main character, and like they would walk around in this world. And it was sort of like, I made a few different versions of this. One was like Animal Crossing, and one was kind of like Legend of Zelda. And then another one was a cross between Animal Crossing and Legend of Zelda. So you like built a house, but you also went and like fought bad guys.
Basically, we're developing an app before you could develop apps.
Yeah, basically. So, and other people have said it was like Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, yeah,
so I don't know what it was. Sure. They just made it. Okay?
Made a game.
And so I basically then would cover up parts of the world with a blanket so that as they explored the world, like kind of Age of Empires style, they would uncover more of the land.
That's really cool.
I'm proud. I'm so proud of it.
I'm like, I
want
to play it right now.
But it took like, I do too. I wish I could remember more about it, but I'm thinking about like the conditions that I was in that allowed my brain to come up with something like that. I think part of the reason we're not as creative now is because I think
Brent said the blanket of war.
The blanket of war, pretty much. Yeah. Yep. And then they go fight the Byzantines and anyway. So
you're saying about how you feel like we're the mental space that you were in to be able to create that.
Yeah, it's I think it's been harder to replicate that, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And I outline them all on my blog. One of them that I didn't outline that I wanted to mention in this because I just read an article about it was boredom. The value of boredom and how we as a culture are terrified of boredom when actually it is one of the greatest things for creativity. So like if you're, I'm going to get like real practical here, but like when you're sitting on the can, like everyone's looking at their phone, but, or in the shower, like, you know, but, like why is the shower a place?
In the shower?
No, sorry. I changed my mind. Not in the shower, unless you have a waterproof phone. That's possible to do. But I do not
I'm sure some people do it. You know, with those life-proof phones or whatever, or the cases.
Right. Well, you have Aqua Notes in your shower, don't you?
I do. And if you haven't checked out myaquanotes.com, Brent, if you could actually drop that in the comments, that would be awesome. It's an excellent thing, especially if you're like a creative type. They're like waterproof Post-it notes that you can just hang up. There's like a suction cup. You can just like kind of put it on the wall in the shower on the tile, and then if you have an idea in the shower, you just jot it down, and then the pages actually like you could tear off and stick them on the wall because of the moisture and stuff. So I develop a lot of ideas.
We're gonna get sponsored by Aqua Notes on the next Facebook
I've been
Live.
trying. I actually reached out to them a couple years ago and was like trying to redesign their website for them. But nice
that's
guy.
awesome.
Yeah. So anyway.
Thanks, Brent. Anyway, so shower's a bad idea, but the toilet is a good idea because, is a good example because I feel like there's a lot of creative energy while we're just sitting there doing nothing else that actually could be used to solving problems in our life that we instead get taken over with scrolling a news feed. Right. And so we sort of get this IV of information that sort of would drown out whatever would be like a creative problem solving process.
Right.
And so I've been thinking about that a little more. Even like this morning, I thought like maybe I won't take my phone down with me to breakfast. What if I just like sort of sat there and thought about things? And I think that as a kid, because I didn't have a phone, being less aware of all the other creative stuff that was going on, in a sense, for me was a good thing. Because my personality kind of operates where I work where I see a need, and if I sense that there is not a need for me, I step back. I don't want to be not needed. Like, and I'm very aware of other people. And so if I am online and I see there's already, millions of people who love Lego and are building things that are much cooler than what I could build, I would probably have never built something when I was a kid, because I would have felt overwhelmed with the amount of other people that were already doing that. So I don't know. I think there's a Mark Twain quote that goes, "All you need is ignorance and confidence, and your success is sure."
Yeah, pretty much.
So I guess all that to say to sort of open up this question is like, I think that maybe narrowing our focus as to what sort of things we pay attention to might be helpful in stimulating some of that creativity.
Right. Well, Heather said she all the time will spend time away from technology and be alone with her thoughts in nature. I know for me, like going to the beach uh, is like it's like my heaven. Mary actually, I think she's probably in I think she's in Hawaii right now. She does like house sitting and stuff. And so
Oh man,
she's like a full-time
much
musician,
creativity.
and she's doing this, and that's how she kind of facilitates her her income and her ability to travel and do music. So she's
Oh my gosh.
definitely awesome at that. But for
Can I
me,
have your friends, Ryan?
what'd you say?
Can I have your friends?
Yeah, I mean, you connect with them. I just know them through Facebook, you know. um,
Cool.
but a lot of it, I'm in the same boat, man. It's like my business is predominantly on the web. The majority of what I do with interacting with clients, like where are you at? You're in Philly, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, you're 3 hours ahead of me, time zone wise. So my sleep schedule is, very, very not consistent sometimes because I have clients all over the world. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that I have to juggle. But for me, it's kind of like how Julia Cameron says in The Artist Way, like creativity is like oxygen. It's like being able to have that space to just not feel like I have to respond to messages, not feel like I have to pay bills or deal with like the business side of running the business. um, I need that space away from all of the screens and all of the stuff with just like a
Yeah.
journal and my thoughts, and especially being out in nature or something. And like you said, being okay with like not feeling like I have something that I have to be doing. And
Yeah.
that's not easy. I mean, it's a real struggle for me
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious because of the fact you put out so much content,
Sure.
on a day-to-day basis. I know you have some, like you use Buffer, for example, so you're not actually posting physically every time you actually post, which is
Right.
a great discovery.
So part of the thing about that though too is knowing that when you use a lot of these third-party apps, sometimes it makes it harder for you to get seen in the news feed and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of different things to juggle, but ultimately it boils down to like, what's my self-care look like? Like, how am I taking care
Mhm.
of myself? Am I take Because if I don't take care of
Mhm.
myself, I can't help other people. I can't help my clients. I can't help my wife. I can't help the people who look to us for advice and
Mhm.
things like that. Um,
Mhm.
so
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's just sort of something I wanted to talk about, with respect to branding, because a lot of work we can put into our image, but in the end, you know, the image is only so good if you actually have a good product as well.
right.
And that's something that I'm trying to balance as well. Is like, at the core of it, I would rather have a good product than a good image. Maybe that's wrong. I mean, I shouldn't have to choose between the two. But at the end of the day, I want to create something that people will like.
Sure.
And I think branding is all tied into it. At
Right.
the very least, it draws people to that.
Well,
Um,
okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
nope, that's all I was going to say.
Um, a lot of it, I guess, the way that I try to look at it is knowing that regardless of what type of thing you're trying to create, whether it's a business, a software program, an album art, any kind of creative thing, as long as you, instead of trying to look at it like, okay, I have this idea and now I need to work on it until it's done. I've trained myself to not think like that and think more in the sense of everything I'm working on is always in development, because I'm always learning new techniques. I'm always learning new skills and developing new things. And so obviously whenever you're like releasing an album or a book or something, you have to get to a point where like, okay, this is done enough for right now. But I've eliminated the pressure on myself by telling myself, well, if I end up finding something that I don't like later on, we live in a way, or in a world that makes it easy for you to release a second edition or a remix, or
Hmm. That's true.
like the book that the first book that I published with Lainey Sullivan, which is called "Stop Wasting Time and Burning Money: How to Crush Procrastination and Live the Life of Your Dreams," written by aspiring number one New York Times best-selling authors. We put the word aspiring on there so they don't sue us. Um, the thing about this, it started out just as like a white paper. It started out just as a PDF, where we were like, this is good enough. And we started using it to market. And you can actually pick up this book at stopwastingtime.today, which is an amazing domain name that I'm very happy about. But, the thing about this is, once it went from PDF that we were using to market with, and just kind of generally talk about like, hey, here's some ways that you can overcome procrastination. Here's some ways that you can overcome where people get stuck on their goals. We then were like, wow, there's a good bit of content here. Like, what if we turned it into a book? But it started out as just an ebook. So we published the ebook, and then on the internal, right on like the copyright section or whatever, we literally wrote like, version 1.0. And then after we saw that the ebook was doing pretty well and that people were really receptive to it, we were like, okay, well, let's turn it into a paperback. And so then with the paperback version, we ended up adding like 30 or 40 pages. And so we changed the cover, we, tweaked some things, and basically made a better product later on after we got some feedback. So instead of thinking like, oh, well, once I finish this album, well, then it's done. I mean, there's plenty of artists who have been around for years who have like re-released album covers or remastered audio tracks and stuff like that. And so I guess that's how I've tried to look at so much of it, especially with my business. Because, I've changed my logo for my business probably 4 or 5 times since 2011. We settled on this little chevron, because for me that this chevron here, which is conveniently now right above my finger, this thing is, for me, it's about talking, it signifies forward motion. It signifies advancement and growth and things of that sort. And so those are things that are always important to me. And so having that foundation, now I have a lot that I can kind of work from, but I don't feel locked into it. I don't feel like it's ever going to be complete or finished. And maybe that's just part of being an artist or a creator or whatever. But that's kind of how I handle a lot of that. So.
Yeah. Interesting. And
take it for what it's worth. It's like, it's just kind of one of those things where I try not to get stuck feeling like I have to have something that is like perfect, because then I just don't publish anything.
Yeah, I am starting to realize that. I'm actually curious. So based on like what you put out there, what's your latency time between like initial conception of idea to putting that on paper to putting that on the internet? Or is there
results widely vary. So like this digital set, that started as this started late last night, probably 1:30 or so in the morning today, actually. I had the idea. I was like, because I've been messing with this software that lets me create this digital set experience. I've done it enough over the last few months that I'm like, oh, there's actually a lot that I can do with this. I can, if I really want to, I can slide myself around and whatever. But then you see the
the illusion's ruined.
Right, the illusion is now ruined. Hello, Nathan. How are you? Get out of here. So even this is like, a big part of it is just being okay with playing and having fun. And like you were saying before about the Lego thing, I was a huge Lego nerd as a kid. Like, we had this big, what was it? It was like, I think it was a green pickle jar, or not a jar, a big green bucket that was like an industrial size bucket, like 5 or 10 gallon bucket that used to have pickles in it. And so I think that we ended up emptying that out and then filling it with Legos. And so my Legos all as a kid smelled like pickles.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and so, but it's one of those things like, but I remember it, and it was one of those things that I spent a lot of time just playing and having fun with it. And I think that,
Uh,
along the lines of what you said about the way social media can be and all this other stuff, it's like we can lose that. We can lose that playfulness that brings real life to our creative pursuits. And I don't want to lose that, because why did we get started in the first place?
yeah, exactly. So it's just a matter of like recapturing the fun behind it. And sometimes it takes a little turning the tap off of information to allow yourself to have fun again. Because it is fun. I don't know. Like, I feel like everyone all the time, maybe just it's Philly because we're like the angriest city in the country, but like it's very easy to just feel like the world is just going to incinerate itself any
Oh my
second.
gosh, dude! I
Um,
believe me. I think I've sent you fearful text messages worried about that. Like,
That's actually true. You might be more paranoid than I am. I'm not sure. But either way, um, it's just like recognizing that there's actually it could be good in each moment, and it's really just a matter of like what we decide to pay attention to. So yeah, that's about it for like the questions that I had in mind. I don't know if you have any other questions, or if we want to at this time pitch it to anyone who's listening if they
sure.
have anything they wanted to
Yeah, I
bring
think that
up.
that's so. So on that note, guys, all of this is all in development constantly, and so I've been considering, doing much more regular content and kind of figuring out a schedule and things of that sort, so that you guys can plan for it, anticipate it, whatever. But I do want to open, kind of the end of the show here as a way to open up the floor for any questions that you guys might have. Maybe you've got an idea that you're trying to bring to life and you're not exactly sure where to go next, or you just kind of feel stuck. We totally know what that feels like, and so we'd love to field some of that. So we'll kind of banter a little bit back and forth here, and if you guys don't have anything, then we'll wrap up for the day and start planning the next one. So
Oh, what did you think of Avengers?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to see it on Friday.
Oh, I shouldn't have assumed.
That face that
Actually,
you made, it gave things away.
actually, well, maybe it misled you. I don't know. That's entirely possible as well.
No,
Um,
already
I
saw spoilers. It's the internet. It's really hard not to. So
oh, Heather asked a question.
she said,
How did you launch?
how did you launch your album?"
Is it
Both
a
of us have
question?
actually launched albums. So Nathan, why don't you?
Well, I'm going to launch my album. Like my okay, so I have put up a bunch of my songs on SoundCloud. They've mostly been individual releases, and mainly just so that I could have stuff out there for people to listen to. So what I'm going to come out with this summer is going to be my first actual album release that's going to go on Spotify and maybe Jamendo, probably iTunes and
Are you familiar with
other.
DistroKid?
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to debate whether I want to use DistroKid or a couple other sites, but DistroKid is what I'm leaning towards right now.
That's the
Um,
founder of CD Baby, whose name escapes me at the moment. Derek something. Derek Sivers, maybe. I don't know.
uh-huh.
He endorsed that very, very heavily. I know Daniel Silva has used that numerous times, and so I uploaded one of my singles, one of my dance tracks that I've mixed. I actually used that, and it was really, really easy. Like, I literally upload the file, you fill out some basic information in it. It ends up populating all those sites, and so I'm able to check and see, oh, I've had X number of streams of this song here, and people have
Mm.
looked at it on iTunes and stuff, and so it's literally like you do very minimal work up front. So
I just posted a link to the sample music that I currently have out. Some of these songs that are on there are going to be on my EP. They're re-recorded, and I changed some lyrics, and I'm changing some other stuff, and also getting it professionally mixed and mastered because I don't like mixing and mastering things. I think it's tedious and hurts my brain. So I am glad to have a gentleman in Philly who's going to be I've hired him to do that for me, so I'm very excited about that.
very cool. She said,
Um,
Heather also said, did you do a countdown for your releases or promote in advance, or is that something you're planning on doing? I
that is
added that
something
last
I'm
part.
planning on doing. Part of the reason why this conversation is good for me is because I'm probably the worst at advertising and branding because like I just I just hate having to like tell people that I'm doing things like for from where I like grew up and like it's just like the bane of my existence to be like I've made a thing, listen to it please. Like I think it's like maybe I don't know, is it a fear of rejection or is it like of appearing arrogance?
Right.
And I think we all sort of deal with that in different areas, like why should people listen to me, you know, like and so for this album, because I haven't actually set a date for the release yet, I haven't set a countdown. But once I have that countdown, then I will most certainly be doing that. And I do plan to do an EP release party. I just this is all like my first time doing any of this, so I'm sort of like just trying to finish the recording first and plan the other things a little bit later. But good question. Yeah.
So I mean, what we could do is we could get like a little transparent graphic of a guitar case that's open and just like put it below you here, and you could be like, by the way, if you'd like to support my EP project, you could throw some digital monies at this Kickstarter program or something.
That's actually someone this past weekend. This is where I might have actually found like a true fan. So she was a big fan of the band that I was in the Irish Rebels last year at the PA Renaissance Fair, and she actually came up to me when I was performing at a gig this past weekend and was like, and she had actually sent money. She had donated money to me because she actually downloaded the entire demo album of the musical I wrote. And I couldn't even figure out how she managed to donate money to me because I had forgotten that at one point I had put a donate button on there for me. But she said she like listened to it all. She really liked it, and I I don't know. I feel like I have not had that experience before of like somebody actively going into your stuff and being like, I'm gonna listen to all of it and then send money to them. Like,
Right.
so that was touching to me, and it was encouraging as well. To
Well, and that's
maybe
I think that that's a really good illustration of that thousand true fans concept because, like I mentioned on a live thing that I did the other day, we have a client that has a blossoming YouTube channel, and they're I think the last I checked, I'm not sure how many subscribers they have. Let me see. Um, but they started doing videos consistently. They have holy crap, they have 39,900 subscribers. Um, and so they have a Patreon page where I just checked the other day and I'm sure it's more now. Yes, it's more now. Okay. So I'll just drag this over here really quickly. So they're making oops, that's really difficult to see here. Let me turn off your information here real quick so that people can see this, at least a little bit. So they're making at least $10,750 a month doing videos online where they've got, what is it, 1,784 people. The last I looked, which was just a day or so ago, that it was like 10,668. So this number goes up literally every time I check this page. And the thing about that is it didn't start that way, not even close. It was something where they just started putting out content, and then they found people like that lady you're talking about, where it's like, I really resonate with this. How can I support you? How can I support you? And having a container for you to do that, especially on your website, that's an aspect of your branding. That's an aspect of bringing people into the story of your art and your creativity. And that's one of the reasons why I do this stuff, is because this is a journey for me just as much as it is for everybody else. Like I'm working at figuring out how to be able to travel the world and visit family and friends whenever I want to. I would love to be able to call you up and be like, hey Nathan, like we're recording another podcast. I want to do this one in Hawaii with Mary and Heather, and I want Brent to come out and help manage some stuff too, and we're all going to fly out and do it on
and I'll
location.
bring my mom.
Right, and you can bring your mom, and and so like these are the kind of goals that I have as a creator, where it's like, okay, I've got my business, I'm working on that, but like I'm wanting to really step up my original content stuff because I have a network of people who are listening. I have people that I'd love to connect with more. But for me to do that, like I have to make some stuff happen. So that's actually why I'm working on this book launch for The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles and myself. So if you guys
Love
haven't
it.
seen the videos I've done for these, they're on my timeline also. But I'm doing live readings because a lot of it is about setting up those income streams and setting up a way for people who do believe in you to support you financially. Patreon's one way you can do it. So that's something to maybe consider for where you're at. Just even saying like, hey, this is a way that you can support me and hear from me regularly on this creative journey. I'd love for you to be a part of it.
Mm.
Even if it's like, because dude, like Caleb and Jacob's patrons on there, the most common thing that people choose is like they pay $5. Like I guarantee you right now, if you put something up and we're like, hey, if anybody would love to support me, I'd really appreciate it. There would be at least a handful of people who would drop $5 a month, and then you could be really intentional with whatever comes in. Obviously, Patreon takes their cut of it, but like whatever you take in, you can be really intentional and be like, I'm going to reinvest all of this right back into my creativity, right back into my career, whatever that looks like. So then you create almost like this line item for your creative pursuits, but you've created like an income stream to go with that river of creativity, if that makes sense. So the more of those things that you can do. So for us, it's like, I've got 2 books. I'm selling backpacks. I'm selling shirts.
I love that you have all of these things here.
I've
I
got
feel like it's the Mary Poppins bag.
That's a really good idea. And so, we can, we're talking about branding. So much of it is about looking the part. And it's like, what else could be down in here, on that
The lamp. You got to pull out the lamp next.
I've got a bag that looks just like my shirt. I've got yoga pants, but they're out of reach right now, so I can't grab them.
Amazing.
But so much of this is about creating these tangible things. That Brent said, "Marketing Poppins TM."
Yeah.
Right. But so much of it is about creating not just a container for all your stuff, but also some of my friends in the creators portal, we talked about this, where it's kind of like looking at your business and your creativity or whatever. Like you have to think of it in terms of like it's a set piece. Like and your set piece is going to have props, and you're going to have things that are going to be helping you tell your story and tell that narrative and play that theater thing. I mean, dude, you're in theater, like this better than anybody.
Oh, I understand that analogy very well.
And so, I guess for me, I'm being fully forthright about this. This makes me very uncomfortable. Like me doing this live right now, like I'm sweating. I feel very anxious and nervous, and I've been doing this stuff for years, but I still deal with that. I still deal with that stage fright thing. I still deal with that, like, but what if they don't like me? Like, who cares? Like, so much of that is like old school, like middle school thinking that we're like drilled in our head. There's the majority of people who see your stuff. My cat just walked in. The majority of people.
Your cat likes you.
Here, come here, buddy. I'll pull him out of my desk too. Oh no, he walked away. So much of it is they want to see you succeed, and I'm learning to embrace that just as much myself as I'm, trying to get my clients to embrace that. Come here, buddy. Come here. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, I second what Heather said. You are doing great, and now that you have a cat in the picture,
What'd you say?
Get double points. I echo what Heather said. You're doing great.
So this is Mr. Neo. So.
Oh my gosh.
He's so big.
Like, and that I think that tops pulling the lamp out of your bag. Like, you have a live cat.
Goodbye.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, gosh, what time is it? We're supposed to go an hour, right? We're like an hour and a half at this point.
Yeah, we're about an hour and a half in. So
Whew.
anyway,
All right. Well, sorry if people have been waiting for us to shut up, but I guess you can just like sign out.
Heather said the branding desk looks like a Chinese takeout box, and you keep pulling out all these neat things out of it. That's funny. Maybe in the next one, I'll actually draw like a little takeout box. And
there we go.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what am I? Am I like the projector? Like, you're the teacher, and you're teaching your kids about my face.
No, I don't know. I mean, it was kind of like the initial idea was, oh, have almost like a monitor screen, and so in the Brent said, I like the Chinese takeout box. We should run with that. Yeah, Brent, I should. I'll need your help making it look more realistic. Brent's an excellent illustrator, by the way. He's got a new book that he's actually just gotten published. That he's a published illustrator now. So Brent, you should drop a link in the comments so people can check it out. So it's been really cool watching him, really lean into his creative thing and
It's really cool.
Seeing that stuff come to life. That for me, the magic of this stuff for me is so tangible, it's so palpable. And I grew up working in my aunt's print shop, and just seeing things go from screen to real life has always been a really fascinating thing to me. And so I'm trying to just have fun with that as much as possible, because I would love for other people to get inspired enough to do their own creative thing. And so, with this little set thing here, the initial idea was to have it look like it was a mounted TV screen or something. And I wanted to have like a little banner that would kind of roll out. But I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. So it's always in development.
I like where I am. Got my name and everything.
So cool, man. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. If nobody has any further questions, then we're going to sign off for the day. But in the meantime, Nathan, why don't you tell them how they can get in touch with you and what you would like them to do?
Oh, well, the main hub, of course, is what's posted right below me at nathanlandisfunk.com. I'm on Instagram now, so I'm proud of that. I have a Facebook page, and I probably post the most music-related things on my Facebook page as I get closer to my EP. So if there should be a link to that on my website. But I'm on all the stuff, and I love connecting with people and finding out, especially like anyone who like tuned into this video. I'm going to probably find you all after if you don't find me, so watch out. Because I just love creative people who are going out and making stuff happen and are willing to like dialogue with other people who want to also make things happen, because I think that together we're all going to make great things if we keep this up.
A rising tide floats all ships. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I had to think about it, but yes.
Yeah, so basically the concept is if we're able to collectively work together as a creative community, championing each other and building each other up, sharing each other's stuff, it's like we're kind of creating our own internal creators economy type thing, which is fun. Because we're able to support one another, because we're all on this same journey together. So thank you for what you do, and thanks for hanging out. I'm actually going to be doing another one of these here, I think in a couple of weeks, with somebody that I met through the Vayner Nation Gary Vaynerchuk. If you guys aren't familiar, there's a Facebook group that I met someone named Jenna, who she runs her own jewelry company. So she makes handmade jewelry and then sells it on Amazon and Etsy, and does a bunch of live events and stuff like that. And so she's making a pretty nice living for herself doing this. And so I've been talking with her the last few months and getting to know her a little bit. So we're going to talk about that journey and what that has looked like for her. But same kind of concept as this, where it's like, I do this because I want to encourage other people that, first of all, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So anyway. So thank you guys. That's a little bit about what to look forward to. I'm not going to do my book reading today because I just did this, but stay tuned for tomorrow. I will be doing and resuming my reading from The Science of Getting Rich, which is a book that I basically have remixed and done my own commentary on. It's the original classic was written in 1910. It's an excellent, excellent book on making money with the creative process. But if you're interested in connecting with us and my team, the link is down. I can't point at it because my hand gets cut off. But
Yeah,
down
you're pointing at my link.
here,
I mean, you can go to my link, but it's the wrong link.
yes, go to Nathan's link and connect with him, and then
And also go to his link.
and also go to this link right here. And you can sign up for our VIPs list. And whenever you sign up for the VIPs list, you'll actually get a free digital, wrong one. Sorry. Free digital copy of Stop Wasting Time and Burning Money. And you'll also get the workbook as well that goes with that. So thank you guys for tuning in. As always, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or just need help with your creative projects, hit us up at reformdesigns.biz and we'll do what we can to help you make your ideas come to life. Thanks again. I'm Ryan Rhoades. This is Nathan Landis Funk, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Good night.